everyone, and welcome to Crucial Conversations about Cognitive Diversity, brought to you by Bridges 2E Media and the 2E Centre for Research and Professional Development. My name is Maria Kennedy, and I have the pleasure of being your host. I'm a mom, yay, an educator, and a change maker who has had the pleasure of working globally with an array of different students and their families. I now live in sunny California, and I was lucky to meet today's guest many years ago when I first arrived here in California. You know what? She smiled at me, and I knew then and there we would be friends for life. Julie is a fountain of knowledge with a heart to share and make a difference in the world. So over the years, I've learned so much from her, and I'm honored that at a time when she is super busy, having just launched her brand new book, which she's going to tell us about later on, and I'm so excited for her to share, she's made time. I tell you, she's made time to come and stop and talk to us. So without further ado, as they say, the amazing Julie F. Skolnick, please, Julie, tell everybody all about yourself.
Thank you, Maria. And, you know, we can have a little love fest because Maria feel the same way about you. So hi, everybody. I'm so glad to see you. And I love watching the chat. So please throw things in there as you want to. I am Julie Skolnick. I am the founder of With Understanding Comes Calm, which is my service through which I guide and support parents of what I call gifted and distractible kids. And you may know better as Twice Exceptional or 2E, or maybe you don't know at all. And that's why you're here. So you're going to learn all about that. I also mentor 2E adults, train teachers, work with clinicians, and my mission is to bring out the best and raise self-confidence in twice exceptional humans. I'm also mom to 3 awesome 2E kids. And I think maybe enough is enough. You already know enough. Let's get to it, Maria. Who cares about that?
They know, but they love you just like me, right? So we just mentioned, just before we got on, Julie and I were trying to figure out when we last actually saw each other. And you know, that crazy thing that we just had called a pandemic has separated us. And so I might not have seen you in person for quite a few years. So I know there's a whole lot of things that you've been doing since we last met. So maybe you want to kick off by telling us what's been going on. What have you been doing, Mrs.?
Yeah, nothing. Just sitting back, kicking back. No. Okay. Yeah. So like you said, yesterday, my first book published. So show and tell. Here it is. Yeah, I had a baby book. I gave birth to a book, and I'm really proud of and excited about this book because it is extraordinarily hands-on, practical. It's a guide for parents, for teachers, for even for 2E adults. It really, so anyway, I'm answering your direct question. I'm sure we'll dive into a little bit about what the book is about. But so yeah, I wrote a book. Since we last saw each other. I also launched the Haystack community for 2E adults. I call them 2E adult needles in the haystack, because how hard is it to find? Like, our kids have a hard time finding their peers, and we don't outgrow our 2E-ness. So the Haystack is a really cool monthly membership with themes and all sorts of stuff that you can learn about. And I'm going to launch in February a course to go along with the new book, which will include a workbook and lots of fun interactive coursework with me. So there you go.
Sweet. Oh, I can't wait for that. I am like beyond excited. Okay, so just before we delve right in, this is an interactive experience, peeps. So please put your questions for Julie in the Q&A. I say in the Q&A because then they'll pop up and we'll actually be able to find them. If you pop them in the chat, they'll get lost in the conversation. Please chat in the chat, share, celebrate, agree with Julie, post your opinions. This is really a space for us all to share and do community, as they say. So, Julie, you mentioned that we don't grow out of our 2E-ness. Now, Is that a good or a bad thing? And how do we know?
Why are we so darn binary? Why does it have to be good or bad? It's a thing.
I love that response, because isn't that the world in which we live? We're either good or we're not good.
Oh my gosh, you're not kidding. So, I mean, and if I had to, like, feet to the fire, had to choose, I'd say it's a good thing. I mean, my favorite thing in the world is to positively reframe. So, the good thing comes when you know inside who you are. I love to say this. I said this last night at my launch celebration. When you leave the room, you're still with you. Right. So I guess you need to kind of like you, because you're always with you. And doesn't that stink if you don't like you, or if you have this constant negative trope in your head? So the good thing is, I guess we don't have to meet anew ourselves, because we're still the same person all the time. But what we really need to do is recognize and understand who we are. And the trick is actually to understand how other people might perceive us, and to make sure we're perceiving other people in an authentic way. And that's hard, because everybody's born looking through their own eyeballs, thinking, whether you're a kid or an adult, well, they must feel the same way that I do about these things, when in fact, maybe they don't. And maybe we need to decide, like, what really matters, to decide to do that cost benefit analysis of, I hate small talk, but I really want to have some friends to hang out with. And how do I get from beginning friend to deep friend? And I do that cost benefit analysis. That's just an adult example. So is it a good thing or a bad thing? I think it's a beautiful thing if you can be your authentic human self and celebrate that self.
I'm so glad that you said that. Okay, so I'm not claiming 2E because I'm not smart enough. However, every time I go places, people say to me who haven't seen me for years, "Oh my God, you're still the same." And my response has always been, "Why would I change? I like me."
Yay!
So you've really just affirmed me in my, it's okay to like me, because I feel that that's important. One of the things, well, there are so many things that you talk about, but you talk about understanding, right? It's with understanding comes calm, is what you say, right? But for parents, and you are a parent, so you're really my expert in this field, how do we understand our 2E kids? What should we be doing in order to understand them? Because with understanding comes calm, and with understanding, I'm assuming, comes an ability to advocate and find what they need. But we need to start from the understanding. So how do I even start to try and understand my 2E person?
Yeah, so great question. And actually, if I can, I'm going to broaden what we're talking about, because the understanding is a really important step. I have what I call the cycle for success. It's 3 steps. It starts with a deep understanding. You have to understand the umbrella. What does it mean to be 2E? Which means, by the way, to understand what it means to be gifted, which is not just smart. So we have to understand the broad categories, and then we have to understand the person in front of us. Remember, I just talked about looking through our eyeballs. So we actually really need to make an attempt to understand the person in front of us. Then the second stop on that cycle for success is strategies. And I have many strategies, 200 pages of strategies in the book. And that's what we do in response to a deep understanding of the profile. And then the third step is the advocacy piece. So your specific question, Maria, was how do I actually understand my child? And that is such an important and nuanced question. And the way you understand your child is, first of all, you learn what does the general 2E profile mean, but then you have to actually stop and ask your kiddo a lot of questions. There's so much misunderstanding, particularly based on what we know as overexcitabilities or intensities in the field, that we have to like put those assumptions aside. My very dear friend, Donna Y. Ford, said in a talk, and now I'm quoting her all over the place, that when you don't know something, you make it up. So if you don't know something about someone, you make it up. that is such an important concept because so many misunderstandings are based on these assumptions. And so if we have like our A to Z goal for our kid, then that's our goal based on our expectations.
Ooh.
So we need to really understand what is going on for our child. I literally was just with a client talking to her about the misunderstanding of her child. The school that this child is in has these, she's not meeting her potential. One of my least favorite sentences. And what does that even mean? Like writing on the test, disappointing, or making assumptions that she's late to something because she doesn't care, when in fact, there's a lagging skill there and she's actually working harder than most people. She's actually working harder and not meeting somebody's expectation, and nobody's noticing the effort. That was a big, huge answer.
That was brilliant, though. But that was definitely brilliant. I literally wrote down Donna Ford's quote: "If you don't know something, you make it up," because we do.
Baby.
We're desperately trying to fill those gaps. And sometimes we fail to actually ask the person who would know, which is the human that's right in front of us. So, yeah, I think we do need to get much better at asking questions.
And actually, part of that is because gifted people make connections lightning quick, right? So boop, we're at Z before we even stop to think, what's in the middle of the Oreo cookie? Like, I know two sides, but I don't actually know what's in the middle.
That's true. That is so true. You also mentioned, oh dear, see, I'll teach my brain to party. It was partying. It had a thought. The thought has now left. Oh, you mentioned that being gifted was not smart. Can you elaborate? Because there is a constant argument with this word gifted that is driving everybody insane. And then I was reading that they were trying to redefine it or something. I'm going, okay, look, it's already a mess.
It's exhausting. Okay. There is a part of gifted, of course, that means smart, bright, potential. How do we identify gifted? By and large in this country, by IQ, an intelligent quotient on a bell curve, certain number. Okay. So yes, that's part of being gifted. You can be gifted in one or more ways. And you can learn in the book, I have what's called the gifted 3-layer cake. My 3-layer cake says the smart, bright, potential assumption of gifted, that's the frosting above, around, between all the layers. And then we have these 3 layers, and they are asynchronous development, perfectionism, the other side of which can be anxiety, and then intensities, or what's known in gifted parlance as overexcitabilities. So that's really, there's this inner experience of giftedness that is so rich and complex. And the cocktail is very different. The combination of strengths and struggles is very different for each person. But when you come to the world and you have such deep existential considerations, when you are affected so deeply by the things happening on our planet or to our planet, you are not entering a situation where you're hanging with your age peers necessarily as a child. You may need to hang with your interest peers more successfully. And so there's a lot of things that can happen that make it difficult, right? We started this conversation, Maria, about needing to love yourself. Well, if you're looking around and you're the only one who's concerned about fill in the blank, or you're the only one who really gets excited to talk about sharks or planets or whatever, you get that you're different. And it's hard to be okay with that when you keep getting that feedback.
Definitely. Funnily enough, there's a question that comes in that I think tags onto that, from a parent wants to know, how can we parents advocate or help coaches, music instructors, etc., in understanding the 2E uniqueness of our children? My little one is in a full-time gifted school program, but we're noticing that she's being left behind in extracurricular activities because they don't adapt to her needs, i.e. ADHD and anxiety.
Yeah, so thank you for that question, Laura. And so first of all, my question is whether it's truly a gifted program or if it's a program for high achievers, which means the sit and face forward and raise your hand in your homework people, which is not gifted by any stretch. So that's my first question, right? We always have to look to the environment first to see how our children, or even as adults at work, are responding, succeeding or not. But to advocate, actually, the entire third part of the book is about advocacy and how to craft your child's story. How do we express strengths first and foremost, struggles, what accommodations or enrichment work, what accommodations or enrichment don't work. And then I always say, think of the one thing you want the team to know, which is usually some sort of a manifestation of how important it is for a personal connection with the child to feel like you get me. So first we start with sort of that. We think in our heads, and by the way, ask your little one, what does he, she, or they think is their strength, their struggle, what works, what doesn't work? Ask them. They are the professional on themselves. And then it's all about having very specific goals. So there are worksheets in the book that help you kind of figure out how to draft a specific goal. My litmus test for a specific goal, Maria, is could a 4-year-old know what the first action item is under that goal? That means you have a very specific goal. So we want goals, very specific, that lead to action items, that lead to assigning who's in charge of what action item, when and how we are measuring success. So goals, action items, humans who are in charge, and measurables.
Ooh, I love that. One of the things that you've said often is ask the child's the expert, they know the answer. Isn't that a bit hard? Because often we believe our children don't know what's going on with them, or what they say about what they feel is often not taken seriously. So I know I've been guilty of it. I'm a bad parent. I've done it. I've told my child that they don't know what's going on. Don't be silly, right? I've said this. Don't be silly. You don't know. I actually said that to a student that fell off the stage one time who said they were in pain. I'm going, don't be daft. You're fine. They've broken their collarbone. So I can be a bad parent.
How refreshing, Maria, that you're like, Parents Anonymous right now. So
I'll take the team.
I have clients with kids from 2 to 18, and then I have adult clients from 18 to 80 something. I don't care what age you are. You can be talking to a twice exceptional child like they know all the things from the moment that they are hearing you and understanding you. You truly can. And it will train them to be able to have a conversation that's meaningful. So in the book, there are literally 200 pages of strategies. And some of my strategies are, so one is called validate, reiterate. How do we validate? Kid falls off the stage. Kid says, ow. And you say, ooh, you fell off the stage. That sounds like you're in pain. Just that validation might allow the child to be like, yeah, but I'm okay. But if you say, no, you're not in pain, then they're like, yes, I am. Right. So we need to kind of help them. What I think of and what with understanding comes calm really means is, okay, you're in your amygdala, right? The feeling brain, the primitive brain, the saber-toothed tiger brain. And we all want to be like, is this a saber-toothed tiger moment? Really, dude, we're in the middle of rehearsal. You fell, I saw, you're fine. But if we do that, it becomes a saber-toothed tiger. They become deeper in their amygdala. When you're in your amygdala, I always say there's a roadblock between there and your prefrontal cortex or your thinking brain. So how do we break down the roadblock? By making the person feel understood. And I don't care if we're talking about your spouse, your best friend, your employer, your child. And that is so important to validate. And then reiterate is when you just kind of restate the facts. Kid comes home, really angry at the teacher, hates the teacher. I hate my teacher. And you're like, yesterday you loved your teacher. You made a card for your teacher and you want to say all these things. But instead you say, ooh, validate. Sounds like it was a hard day today. Yeah, my teacher didn't let me turn in my homework when it was right in my locker. Then you're going to reiterate those facts. Oh, the teacher didn't let you turn in your homework when it was right in your locker. And maybe down the line, you find out why the teacher had given 10 warnings and the kid ignored it, right? Or whatever it is. But by talking it through without judgment, by asking questions, the child critically thinks, figures it out and goes, oh yeah, maybe I should have listened the first time, without you being like, you should have listened the first time. There's a huge difference.
Oh yeah. So can we like go back, like, because my child's like 29 now, and can you like just come live in my house when he
Never
was
too late.
when he was a baby, and we'll restart. I'm actually really blessed and fortunate because there were other sensible people in my life who helped him out. So he's actually an amazing human. No thanks to me. But
I don't believe that for a minute.
That just makes so much sense. I'm going, oh yeah, let's not have an argument. And let's not, let's not confront, but just validate and reiterate. So I'm going, oh, see, every time I get with you, I learn something new.
But let me say something for those parents who are out there like, you have to be kidding, Julie. Really sit down with my kid who's like freaking out and having a temper tantrum. I know, people, I know. I'm the parent of 3 awesome 2E kids. It takes time. And once you are in this pattern, parenting child parent pattern, and it takes a while to change it. But once the child sees that you're pivoting to do this question asking and this validating, it takes much less time later. And by the way, it's better now. I mean, Maria, if you said to me, oh my God, I have such a horrible relationship with my 29-year-old, I would say, start now. It's never too late. Start now.
I'm blessed. He's amazing. I absolutely adore him. He's such a wonderful human. And I think we're closer now than ever. But I literally put that down, not to me, but to the amazing people that we've been blessed to have come into our life. So it's really cool. So talking of young people, we have another question. How can you manage a teenager who is evolving with normal mood shifts and independence from parents and the gifted excitabilities? Oh, yeah.
So your teenager's job is to push you away. It's so that we're not sad when they leave the house. They have to be obnoxious and horrific. So that's their job hormonally. And so your question is, how do you manage? So okay, here's something that I do a lot with my parent clients, and it's one of the 25 worksheets at the end of the book. And it's called Parent Vocabulary. And I bet many people listening and attending this talk right now think that they give their kid expectations and their child is not meeting the expectations. When in fact, what we need to do is actually say what a responsibility is and the expectations around that responsibility. So it is not an expectation to clean your room. That's the responsibility. The expectations are the how, when, where of cleaning your room. So look at the floor space. Let's sort if there's dirty laundry. Because if I'm a 2E kiddo and I'm like building Lego on my bedroom floor and there's Lego pieces everywhere, so it's like literally a hazard, I'm not going to see that as something I have to clean up because I'm in the middle of my Lego build, obviously. Obviously, you don't want me to clean that up. So I need to understand what are the expectations. And sometimes we actually go out and see more of the forest or the 30,000 foot view. And we think of a responsibility as having respect for an older child. Having respect might mean asking to use the car, not just taking the car, making sure to text mom and dad when you, or mom and mom or dad and dad, when you get to where you're going, making sure that you let them know when you're going to be home. But you don't just intuitively know that, even though mom and dad have this running checklist and they know, like, no problem, exactly all the things that they expect. And you're like, but why would I have to do that with a kid who's 2E? Aren't they smart? Yeah, but that's not what they're thinking about. They're thinking about the environment. They're thinking about Israel. They're thinking about whatever they're thinking about. And they're not thinking about all the minutia that we're talking about. or we have in our heads. So it's this way of, this is so kind of like, I actually didn't realize when I started to talk about this and craft this parent vocabulary, how revolutionary it was. But every family I work with, it is a game changer. Suddenly, it makes sense because you have to make your expectations clear, concise, consistent, and appropriate. So the kid who doesn't brush their teeth, we can't just assume that they're just not doing it because they're not listening to us. We have to also think about, like, is it appropriate? Do we have to figure out sensory wise if there's something going on? Like, I have a lot of families with teeth brushing and shampooing. So we need to think about all of the things. And then we have to be very specific. We actually mean when you brush your teeth that it includes toothpaste and that you're brushing your teeth twice a day. There's a lot of expectations, guys, and that you're doing it for 2 minutes. And it's like either, I don't know what your rule is, before or after. I don't know. There's a lot of expectations that we just know that our kids don't know. And then it's even worse because we think they should know because they're smart. Yeah. So I hope that helped, Francis.
Yeah, I love that. But my other thing is they should know because I've said it enough times. But then what I didn't process was they weren't listening. So
or it wasn't said in a way that was specific enough that broke it down. It's like writing a paper. By the way, when you do this type of talk, you can then put it over onto, like, this is kind of like writing a paper. Like when we think about how the paragraph is structured, it's all the same. It's being very specific.
Yeah, I think that's definitely one of my weaknesses, or was one of my weaknesses, was I was not quite specific enough and just assumed that he read my mind. And apparently he wasn't very good at mind reading, very good at lots of other things, but reading, mind you, there's a lot going on in my mind, so probably not many people can read.
But maybe he also was picking up on your emotions, which a lot of our 2E kids do. And if you were getting frustrated at the fact that he wasn't reading your mind, even though you weren't actually saying, I want you to read my mind, right? But you just kind of like, you're looking through your eyeballs. So you're thinking, of course he knows. I mean, how could he not know? His siblings doing it, or I do it, or whatever it is. And then he picks up on your emotions because he's 2E. And it's like a spiral. We have to stop. The most important word in our vocabulary is pause. We have to pause and see the whole situation.
Oh, cool. I like that. Pause. Pause. So talking about pausing, so you're a parent of 3 amazing humans, and you've survived being a parent of 3 amazing humans to be just like an amazing person. Right. So do you have time for anything else? Do you do hobbies? Do you, I mean, what's decompressing for you? You seem to be going all of the time.
What an awesome question. I've never been asked that question, Maria. Okay. Well, I have an answer. So I love to crochet. I don't have, only when I'm driving, like when my husband's driving, I'm not driving, but if my husband's driving, I'm crocheting. If I'm not working. And then I also like to horseback ride. And I have 24 hours in the week, every week, that I unplug. So observing Sabbath from Friday sundown to Saturday sundown, we just have family time. We play games. We go to synagogue. We do all the things. And that is amazing. My staff knows they're not going to hear from me. They'd probably really love that time too. And I just really unplug, and I recommend that. I also read every night. I read like fiction. I love to read fiction. So those are the things.
I love that. I absolutely love that. I read every morning. That's part of my morning ritual. And so I like to kickstart my day. Normally these days I'm so old and cranky that when I read at night, I fall asleep midway through my book. Which is,
well, that does happen. It might be 2 sentences, but I did forget to say every morning I do a little workout, and I watch something on my phone that I love to watch. That's also fiction and just fun and fluff.
So basically, as parents, we need to have some time to unplug, to decompress, and to do something else. And maybe that's not with your children, or maybe it is with your children, depending on what it is that brings you joy too, right? We're always telling us trying to find the joy for our kids. We must find the joy for ourselves.
Absolutely.
So we have another question. When training stroke working with schools, what have you learned might be the driving force of resistance to gaining knowledge about 2E students?
Beautiful question. And it's a lack of training. It's a lack of exposure. It's aren't you just enabling? Isn't this kid lazy? Don't you think the parents aren't being strict enough, or being too strict, or aren't they? It's a lot, or it's myths about giftedness, that gifted means that you're gifted in all areas. Gifted means that, if you're gifted, things are a breeze. It's easy to teach you. It's easy to parent you. You have great organizational skills. And mostly it comes down to this lack of awareness, exposure, or understanding. I always come from the understanding place first. And then just not knowing how to do something different. So many, I'm going to get a little soapbox. So many parents, families, and schools love to use external motivation, the behavior charts and the incentive programs and oh my God, shoot me now. We used to do this too. When I knew nothing, I had poker chips and you could earn, but then you could lose. I mean, oh my God, it was a full-time job to figure out what the rules were. And of course, we know our 2 kids just want to know the rules. And by the way, it doesn't teach any skills. So what I often say is, first of all, you can anticipate so much. Right now, I can tell you the child or student or client you're thinking about right now probably has a hard time with transitioning, maybe doesn't like to engage in things that are not highly interesting for them, absolutely needs meaningful connections and work. And so you can anticipate all of that. And if you try tomorrow what you tried yesterday and didn't work, I promise you it's not going to work tomorrow. But hope springs eternal. So we're like, okay, today it's going to be better. Sometimes the stars are aligned. Sometimes they sleep and they eat and they exercise and they're in their best selves and it works. But that's so rare. And in between, if you're using external incentives or fear-based strategies, you're killing the relationship and you're not teaching skills. So I think sometimes teachers have been trained inappropriate interventions. One of which is, if you don't get your behavior together, we can't let you do the cool thing. When letting them do the cool thing, we'll actually get the behavior together.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. As an elementary school teacher, that was the constant bane of my life, right? So Fred's not allowed to do this because Fred didn't do that, but Fred didn't want to do that because Fred thought that was stupid. But, if you let him do this, then maybe we could get him to do something else. But yeah.
So actually what you're talking about is the bucket of resilience that I talk about. There are things that fill the bucket and things that empty the bucket. And I'm like quickly looking through the book to see if I can find the image of the bucket of resilience, but I can't. So the bucket of resilience, if you have a full bucket and you have to do the thing that Fred doesn't really like to do, he might conform because he's got a full bucket. But if Fred has an empty bucket, if Fred is hungry or tired, or somebody said something or looked at him and he interpreted it correctly or incorrectly, whatever, or he's picking up on somebody's emotions, Fred is no way going to do that thing.
Definitely. I've had so many friends. So there's a program in California. It's an initiative called MTSS, Multi-Tiered Systems of Support. So that our attendee wants to know, are you familiar with this initiative? And if yes, do you think it meets the needs of the 2E child?
So it's so interesting. I just spoke in Colorado and then I spoke in Massachusetts. I'm going to Pennsylvania next week. And I have heard this MTSS and I just haven't had a chance to pause as I suggested and to learn more about it. And so it's so funny. I was literally just talking about this with somebody in Massachusetts and I just didn't have the time to actually look at it and learn it. So I apologize. I do not know exactly what it is. I can imagine. Yeah, I don't even want to comment on it because if I guess it wrong, it's not relevant. So if you want to put in the chat or in the Q&A a little bit more about it, I'm happy to comment about it.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't know it either, so I can't help either. I can't fill you in, but hopefully they'll pop something in to help us. Another question. As a parent of 3 2E kids, yes, can you please expand on their educational experiences? Are they in private schools for neurodiverse kids, or are they in public schools with accommodations, etc.?
So I think you're asking about my 3 kids.
Your 3 kids, yes. They wanted to know about your kids went through.
My 3 kids are 22, 20, and 14, and they've had wildly different educational experiences, from taking 2 years to work during COVID and in college, and then transferring, going someplace else. They've gone from private Jewish day schools to public schools. They've gone to boarding schools. They've gone to wilderness programs. They've gone to, so we've done yes, and yes, we've done all the things. And the important thing was always checking in with them to understand how things were going and advocating in a collaborative way. In fact, I will tell you, this is kind of like a recent realization I had when somebody asked me another question having to do with advocacy. When my middle guy, who's now 20 years old, when he was in elementary school, it was a very painful thing that we had to remove him from the school. And while the school really wanted him to stay there, we knew it probably wasn't the best environment. And I remember literally advocating pretty much 24/7. And the head of the school said, would you be willing to talk to parents about how to advocate? Because it was so fact-based and so collaborative and so in the spirit of wanting to do what's best and recognizing how hard teachers were working. Now, that is not to say that if teachers don't get your kid and are inappropriate with your kid, that you do not turn on the mama papa bear situation. I used to start my parent teacher meetings with, tell me what's special about my kid.
Ooh.
Because if they're like crickets, that's a big sign. When does my kid shine? When do you see my kid most engaged? And if they don't, that's a big clue that there is an environmental issue.
I love that. I love that. I used to start my parent conferences by telling my parents what was great about their kid and the fun that they had and what wonderful work they'd done. My mindset on it was that then they would understand that I see their kid and that we do have fun together. So God forbid that I might have to tell them something negative later. They'd at least had a little cushion before we got there.
It's like you read my book, Maria, because I talk about deposits, teachers making deposits in the trust bank account, because I literally say, if you need to go to parents with something difficult, they know that you've seen the positive of their kid. And for parents, it's making deposits in the positive perspective bank account, helping teachers to see your child engaged in other activities outside of school, because if school isn't where they're succeeding, they need to see, and to let teachers know when the child actually really appreciates school, the book that they're reading during lunch, the lab that they're doing in bio, whatever it is, to give positive feedback to teachers, so that when you have to say to a teacher something hard, like, this isn't working for my kid, like, how can we fix this? They aren't going to be defensive. So it works both ways, which is the collaborative nature.
I love that. Yeah, because I have called parents up in the middle of the day and they've gone, oh God, what did my child do? I said, I didn't do anything. I wanted to let you know that they just did this wonderful thing and it was so fantastic. And I feel the need that I must tell you now, because by the time they get home tonight, they won't remember.
Beautiful, beautiful.
And those were my favorite conversations. I love calling parents to tell them how brilliant their child is. And like you say, because we develop that relationship, because we develop that trust, because I'm always prepared to share all the good, on those occasions when there is a problem, then we can sit down and actually collaborate and come from a place of wanting the same thing, which is the best for their kid.
And it doesn't have to be that the kid did some magnificent thing. The kid could be the one who raises their hand to help pass out papers all the time.
But for me, it was something good for them. So based on wherever they are, so if I had kids so often at the beginning of the year, you have children that don't like to talk much, so if we get to a space where they're talking, I'd let their parents know we had a great lesson. They talked lots today, and I get excited about little things.
Beautiful.
So, we got some hard questions. I don't know about this one. How do you help people develop intrinsic motivation?
I love that you said people.
That's what was written. I'm just reading what was written.
I have the questions up. I just love that she said people.
Yeah.
Because, she didn't say 2 kids. She said people. It's a great question. So the first part is demonstrating respect, which means actually pausing and listening and asking questions. So I call it the parent pivot. Rather than telling, we ask. Rather than solving, we lead with questions. We think about I know what my kids should do. They should do XYZ. Well, if you tell your kid XYZ, they're not going to do XYZ. So we need to ask questions that lead them to XYZ. I have a great example in the book of this, which is a little bit lengthy. So in a shortcut way, if it's sort of akin to what I talked about of being mad at the teacher, right? A child is upset because kids left them out on the playground, and you could be like, well, what are you talking about? You had a sleepover with them yesterday. But instead you validate and reiterate, like we talked about before. Wow, it sounds like it was hard on the playground. You were disappointed. You really wanted to, and then you ask questions like, well, tell me like what was said and why did you think that? And what do you think they were feeling? And how did that go? And, so let me get this straight. And you reiterate the experience and you say, I wonder what you're going to do next. I wonder what your plan is. If you had a rewind button, what do you think would you have done anything differently? Like, why do we have to put all the words? In fact, what I usually do at this point when I'm speaking to an audience or I'm with a client is I say, everybody do this in front of you. This is the space that you either fill so your kid can't get in there or your student can't get in there, or you ask questions that invite them into that space. And that causes intrinsic motivation because the child realizes that they are taken seriously, that they are important, and you can do this. And so you're probably thinking, well, wait a minute, I mean, intrinsic motivation to do the stuff that's really hard, like chores or whatever it is, or to do homework or whatever. Again, you have to validate with that. Like, okay, so I see you're not doing your homework, and I know it's important to you to succeed. So tell me what's going on. Right? Or the kid is melting down, or your spouse is melting down. The greatest thing you can say is, wow, you don't seem like yourself today. We're giving the benefit of the doubt. So understanding is paramount. How can I help this person in front of me feel understood when they're not meeting my expectations, which is really hard because I'm annoyed that they're not meeting my expectations. But we have to, instead of focusing on behavior, think about what underlies behavior. Was it just like a really hard day today and they're just like done and their resilience bucket is empty?
Wow. Oh, you really are amazing. Ooh, okay. I'm going to ask a couple more questions and then I'm going to tell people how not only can they purchase your book, but how 2 really lucky people can win a copy of your book. I didn't tell them because I didn't order mine on Amazon. I discovered too late that I needed to Amazon it, and then I would have already had it. I ordered it from Barnes and Nobles, and it's due to reach my house when I get home tonight. But I was a little disappointed this morning that it didn't get there before I left. But just, so I have to wait till tonight to read it. Okay, so I know.
Trying to give it to you.
Stick it through the screen. If we could teleport, then I'd have it. So what if you see the big picture that your kid doesn't see? I.e., you think they would flourish at a different school, but they want to stay. Maybe because it's the devil they know. They don't like change. They don't know what the new place looks like.
Yeah, I just actually talked to a parent about that this morning. And thank you for the very specific answer, because as I was reading the first question, as listening to Maria, I was thinking, yeah, you see the train coming down the track, right? And you're like standing in the track, like, go that way, not this way, right? You know, as a parent. But your question is about a different school. So this has to do also with transitions. And actually what I would do, very Julie Skolnick answer, is I would say, if you were to create your own school, what would it look like? What would make school the best place? If you had a magic wand, like what would be different about, and I don't know, I don't think we know what age. So what grade, like whether there are different classes that this child is going to, science and English and music and whatever. But I might ask some questions to find out what they really like and what would make things better or more interesting. And then if I'm looking at schools, because I really feel like the environment is toxic for them, I'm going to really validate the heck out of the things that aren't really going great for them. And then I might, in a very, kind of like soft way, I might say, I know you've been at this school for a while and you like to be there with your friends and stuff. But I also heard the things that you shared that are hard, that you wish were different. And I did come across a school that has some of the things. So zero pressure, zero commitment. There's this open house or whatever it is that you want to go to. And you say, I think it would be a really good idea to just try it on for size and see what it feels like to walk through. No commitment, I promise you. Because in the end of the day, especially depending on how old the child is, it becomes something where you need to also outsource a little bit. So if there's an advisor at school who recognizes that this is not a great fit, if there's a friend, who's his quarterback? Who does, or her or they, I don't remember what you said now, but whoever, an uncle, a friend, whoever it is that they trust, that's a grown-up, you have them, this is the back door. The most direct route is the indirect route with a 2E kid. So sometimes parents, they don't want to hear from. So we need to relinquish and plant seeds along the way.
I love that, love that, love that. So we have another question. It says, how would you define the difference between gifted and 2E? Is there even gifted without the second E?
So Eva, I love this question. And I used to say, I don't really say this in front of anybody, but now I'm saying it a lot. So we talked about my 3-layer cake of giftedness, right? And the first layer or characteristic is asynchronous development of gifted. So in Julie Skolnick's opinion, sorry for those of you who disagree, if asynchronous development is a defining characteristic of giftedness, aren't all gifted people 2E? So some people, don't hate me. That's my opinion. And because, people are like, it's so hard to find other 2E people, but all I do is hang out with only 2E people. It's not so hard for me to find them. But it's the really important question is really the now what, because gifted 2E can look so many different ways, whether you're gifted and autistic, you're gifted with ADHD, you're gifted with anxiety, you're gifted with processing speed, you're gifted with working memory, executive functioning, all the things. It looks so different. So really what's most important is the now what. And how do we get to the now what? We understand, we ask questions, we collaborate with the people in this child's life, we make our expectations clear, concise, consistent, and appropriate. And we remember the trajectory and timeline is very different for gifted and 2E people. In some ways, it's lightning fast. And in other ways, things take so many conversations when parents have it so readily, that checklist in their mind that they want their kid to do. We have to pause.
Oh, gosh. Goodness. Okay. All right. Oh, I'm running out of time. Please don't leave me. You don't know how much I love talking to you. You are so amazing. We could chat for days.
Likewise.
So I have a couple more questions. I can't believe it. You've been working in the field now for close to 10 years. So what's changed? Have you seen changes?
So what I will tell you is we are on a cresting wave. More and more people are understanding hearing 2E, twice exceptional. Yesterday morning, I had the great fortune of being on Good Morning Washington, and the interviewer was like, I never knew about this before. And I was like, poor person. So, I'm trying to shout from the rooftops, guys, and I've been doing that since I started. And this book is one way of doing that. So more and more people are really, the response to the book is amazing. And I think schools and teachers really want to start understanding. There are more and more pop-up 2E certificates happening at a undergrad and graduate level, which I think is magnificent. I think in some bizarro way, COVID and homeschooling and recognizing what our kids were getting and not getting in some circumstances also helped to shine a light on, whoa, why is my kid not actually able to do the things that I see either other kids doing, or why are these things happening? So there's a lot more awareness, which I think is fantastic. It used to be I would go to gifted conferences and man, you were lucky if there was one session on 2E. And now it's hard to find a session that's not on 2E. So that's kind of super duper.
Cool. So we're making a difference. And so with more people knowing, maybe more of our students who are having to stay in mainstream education will start to get their needs met.
Yeah, and I purposely put the title of the book as Understanding, Supporting, and Advocating for Your Twice Exceptional Child, because I wanted twice exceptional there. It's called Gifted and Distractible, which is the name of my newsletter, and this really big umbrella term. Distractible actually comes from the pediatric guide. 10 years ago, I was trying to find the biggest word that I could use that would cover all the things. But I really wanted twice exceptional there because I really believe in calling things what they are, and that is the term that we use.
Oh, quick question. Would you recommend that a parent seek their own diagnosis of gifted stroke 2E if they suspect they were never diagnosed?
So I guess I would ask you, what's the goal? I mean, I love the idea of everybody on the planet having a neuropsychological evaluation, because we should all know how our brains work and give ourselves grace, because now we actually know why neurologically things are hard, or things are the way they are, or magnificent the way they are for us. But sometimes they can be to the tune of $4,000. So you got to do your cost benefit analysis of where you can put your resources. I do really believe that it's very important to have accurate neuropsychological evaluations, which means not to go to just anyone, but to go to the short, shallow bench of people who actually can evaluate and understand and are experts in gifted and 2E. That's super important. So what I recommend, yeah, with all those things, if we've got the budget and we found the person who is either near us or we have to travel to, who really gets gifted in 2E, then yes, why not? That's so good to know about yourself.
Cool. Oh, we had a sneak in question and I really want to squeeze it in, so I'm going to be bad. So this person has two 2E boys, and I know there are other children with learning challenges at their school. Parents need support, and I've thought about starting a support group, but don't know how to go about it. What do you think? Suggestions?
So I love it. I used to do a parent empowerment group, which I loved doing parent empowerment groups. It was a little bit like the haystack that I do for adults. And I think, I will say that Facebook is kind of a great place for that type of thing. I actually have a Facebook page called Let's Talk 2E Parents, and it's got parents from all over the world. I have one for adults, one for teachers. So sometimes finding people on Facebook already curated for your actual subject that you're interested in, and then saying, where are you? And then finding people and having a meetup. That's one way. In February, I'm going to do this course and we're going to have a cohort and people are going to get to know each other. That's another way. You'll be learning and doing things together. So absolutely, just like our kids need their peers, so do you, parents.
Cool. Unfortunately, we have hit the magic hour, which is the magic hour when we're going to lose you. And we have been so blessed to have had you for this little hour that you have been able to spend with us. Why, for some unknown reason, have I lost my poll? I can't find my poll.
I don't know.
Where did my poll disappear? Oh, there it is. It says polls on it. Ha ha ha. Okie dokie. So, okay, so to stand a chance to win Julie's book, right? The title of Julie's book is, and I would like you to have a look. Now, why is it not letting me launch it? I don't know what's going on.
Isn't this fun watching this happen? This is like watching our children.
Okie dokie. So there you go. So the poll is live and launched. I'm going to give you about a minute, and all you have to do is pick which one you think is the correct answer. And so far, everybody's got the answer correct, which is wonderful. So they've got the title of the book, and then we will do a draw later on, and those people will.
I'm renaming it to Gifted and Wacky. That's what I'm doing.
So, Julie, I can't thank you enough. Do you have any final words for us before you go? I mean, apart from the obvious, people, you need to go to Julie's website. It is full of so many resources. I cannot tell you. This lady is amazing, and she just has just about everything that you could possibly need. If you don't win the book, and as only 2 of you will, then lots of you won't. You need to purchase it. I'm telling you. What you got? 25
worksheets
25 worksheets in the back, 200 pages. There are so many strategies that all of us need to commit to memory and start using to make a real impact in the lives of our children. So one last parting wish from you, Julie.
You are the just right parent for your child, and your child needs you. And if you're an educator, you're the just right educator for this child. You have it in you. And if you are a 2E service provider, you are the just right 2E service provider for the child in need and the family in need who have come to you. You absolutely have the tools, and you have exactly what you need in front of you, which is the child.
I love that. Julie, thank you so much. It has been an absolute pleasure. My honor. You know how much I love you and adore you. And hopefully I'll get to see you soon. Maybe you can come over and visit and just hang out with us crazy California people.
I love it. And I might be there in December to do a book signing. And I just put a link in the chat there's a free 20-minute phone consultation that I offer to anybody. And there's the link, julieskolnick.com/20min.
Okay. Julie, please let us know where you're going to be and when you're going to do the book signing, because I will definitely share that with everybody over here and try and get over there live. But, you know, obviously you're going to have to sign my book anyway. But hey, I also want to say a special thank you to the man behind the scenes, which is John, because without him, nothing at all works. He is truly amazing. Like I said, I'm blessed to be surrounded by very, very smart people, smarter than me.
Thank you, John.
Next month, I will be back. Guess what, parents? I will have parents visiting next week. So Jeremy and Leah Cohen, they'll be sharing about their family, because they also have 3 children, but they all have different challenges. And so they'll be sharing with you tips for parents. So have a wonderful month. Enjoy Halloween, which is coming soon. Make sure that you buy Julie's book. I'll be checking in on you all, right? So, well, because I want to compare notes, because I'm going to be writing all over mine. I may have to ask you some questions about things to clarify for me. But we'll be back in November. So take care, everybody. Be safe. And please make sure that you join me. So take care, everybody. Bye.
Thank you, Maria.
Thank you, Julie. All right.